Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session tonight on LinkedIn and supporting dyslexics who are working. But before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're all meeting on tonight. I'm on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening in tonight. So I'm very excited, as always. That is my favourite word, my dyslexic favourite word, to be welcoming Vic to the show this evening, who is a LinkedIn guru trainer. And we met actually via LinkedIn, funnily enough. And I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to learn more about Vic and his work that he does, not just in LinkedIn, but all the other amazing work you do. So welcome to the show this evening.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's great. It's fascinating you're across the other side of the world. I'm in England, and it's morning here and it's evening where you are. So yeah, it's great to be on your show. Thank you.
I'm just going to turn up my volume a little bit because it sounds a little bit quiet on my end. I don't know what it's like for everyone else.
No worries.
You have a fantastic, an interesting work career in what you do, and that you were diagnosed with dyslexia later on in life, which is not an uncommon theme, we both know. And you have this huge following on LinkedIn as well. So I would love to, for our audience who don't know you in Australia, to learn a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, great. So I got started on LinkedIn 2009, I think it was. I was still living in South Africa at the time, came over here to England and used LinkedIn to make connections, to get to know people, and also to grow my business, which at the time started out as recruitment and then moved into mainly around consulting, change management, change leadership, leadership training, and all that sort of stuff. And so I learned to use LinkedIn to get that sort of business. And I've just grown my LinkedIn profile since then to do that sort of stuff. But then obviously with COVID and all that sort of stuff coming around, my international travel came to an abrupt halt because I was traveling all over the place as a change management consultant. That came to an abrupt halt, and then I had to change the way I used LinkedIn. I changed the way I was doing business, what I was doing, and now I primarily focus on using LinkedIn to spread the message about dyslexia and ADHD to small business owners. When I say small business owners, I'm talking about companies of 35 people or less. But then also to bigger companies that have staff which are dyslexic and ADHD. So focus on the one side is really on business owners, entrepreneurs, and that sort of thing. And on the other side, it's companies that have staff that have got dyslexia and ADHD. And primarily, I talk about how to use LinkedIn as a dyslexic or someone with ADHD, how to put things in place that work for you. But then also I do a lot of things around mindset, around high performance, all that sort of stuff. Again, primarily focused on people with dyslexia and ADHD. So that's just a brief background or brief idea of where I'm at and what I do.
I mean, I could talk to you all night about dyslexia in the workplace, as when we first met. Yes. We had a wonderful conversation about the different work we were doing. And well, one, how important it is, but also how well aligned it was in what the messages we were trying to get across. But how can we, as dyslexics, I've just worked out recently that I can download my LinkedIn profile as my CV, which is amazing because a CV takes such a long time to craft. And to be able to now download it and use that, and lots of workplaces I hear are accepting that format. So what do you think are some of the key initiatives that we could be, initiatives not the right word, sorry, key points that we should have on our LinkedIn page if we're wanting to use it to download as our CV?
I think it depends on your on what you're trying to achieve. So on the one side, you would have, for example, a business owner who is dyslexic and or ADHD or any of the other neurodiverse conditions, and maybe wants to use LinkedIn, their profile, to raise their expertise profile on LinkedIn. So they would set up their profile in a slightly different way to somebody who may be using LinkedIn to get a job, for example, to apply for a role. And so it depends on what the outcome is that you want from your LinkedIn. And I would say if you're looking at using LinkedIn to create a profile that's really a CV, then you need to approach it from the perspective of firstly understanding that LinkedIn started out as a job board. So it is set up in a way to advantage people who are looking for a job or wanting to apply for jobs. So there's on LinkedIn, there are loads of jobs that are posted all the time where you can just click on a button and it uploads all your details straight into that job for you to get it. But then on the other hand, what you said is you can actually download it now as a CV. So what are the key things you need to have? Well, I think before you think of downloading it, you need to think of what it looks like when somebody comes to your profile. What impression do they get of you as a person? So they may get your CV, even if it's downloaded off LinkedIn, or they may get the one that you've applied for a direct job. And their first thing is going to be actually to go to your LinkedIn profile. So the question then is, what are they going to see when they open your profile? And I would say that there's probably 5 key elements that you need to have on there. Number one would be right at the top, there's a thing called a banner, which is right behind or part of your professional image. So first, create a banner that represents you as a person that is looking for a particular role. That says something about your character, says something about your personality, says something about your skills, all that sort of stuff. So have your banner that portrays a good professional image, number one. Number two, have a professional photograph of yourself with a picture that again represents you as a professional. Now you don't have to get a professional photographer to take those pictures, but you can just stand up against a white wall and get somebody who's got a fairly steady hand to take a number of photographs of you using your mobile phone. You can then upload those images into a platform which comes from Australia, I believe, called Canva.
Oh, yes.
You can edit that picture and you can take the background out. So if anybody goes to my profile, they'll see my picture and it's got a red background. And if you just look around my studio, you can see I'm quite into red. My logos are red, all that sort of stuff. So it represents me, who I am, and what I stand for. Okay, so have that image there. So firstly, your banner. Secondly, your professional image. I've seen some horrendous things, and I really try to discourage people from doing it. So, for example, there was one guy that I saw, and he was looking for a job as a salesperson or business development manager, working for a brewery. That's kind of the job he was aiming at. And his image, the picture that he had on his LinkedIn profile, was of him standing on a golf course, downing a beer. That just doesn't come across as the kind of person I would want to employ as a BD. Okay, so or a BDM. So have something that really showcases you as a person. So that's number two. Number three, you've got a section called a headline. Put in that headline area, how you it could help the company you wanting to work for. One of the things I see a lot of people put in there they will say they're looking for a job, so they will say something like, looking for my next great opportunity. They don't do that. That's not really communicating your value. Again, if you go to my profile, you'll see there that I've got, I say the things that I do and what I represent and what I stand for. Do that, because that is what makes you stand out from everybody else. So have your headline tell people more about you and what value you offer and what ideas you bring to the table, because then you're selling yourself. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing is to write your about section, the summary as it used to be called, in a way that tells a story of you. It tells one of the things you see a lot of people do is put in a whole lot of bullet points. Bullet points are good, but they can be overdone. But our brains, as you will know, our brains are geared for story. Yeah, if you think back historically, I mean, you were talking about the traditional people on the land. They never had a written vocabulary, or a written structure. Everything to them was story. So when they relayed the history of their family, it wasn't in writing, it was in a story. I know, coming from South Africa, the Zulus and the Xhosas and the Shangans and the Sepedis, everybody has a story background. So write your about section in a story format. And if you are not good at writing story, go to something like ChatGPT or one of the other AI tools that are available. Yeah, I see Dave nodding away.
Dave's nodding, we're both going, yeah. My favorite tool.
Yeah, ChatGPT, brilliant thing. But the way in which you put the prompt into it will determine what it gives you out. So, for example, you could take what you've written, a whole lot of bullet points maybe, and put it into ChatGPT and say something like, please reconstruct this, or the following. So you could use the prompt, I'm just off the top of my head saying, use the prompt, for example, please reconstruct the below bullet points into a story using the style of, and don't use this, but using the style of Shakespeare, okay? And what it will do is it will take all that bullet point stuff and it'll make you sound like Shakespeare. So think of your favorite author. You know, I've got a book here called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Brilliant book. I think it's a great book. But that may be your favorite author. So just put into ChatGPT in the style of Jeff Olson. Now that's not plagiarism in any way. It's taking what you've got, you're adding it to an AI tool, and it's giving you something back. Then you can copy that, you can put it onto a Word document, and then just rewrite it to sound more like you. And you've created a story.
Do you think you could ask it to, do you think it knows enough now, or have you tried it to say, can you write this for my about page on LinkedIn? Have you tried that yet?
Yeah, I've done it. I've tried it. It works well, but the big disclaimer, I would probably call it, I don't know what the proper word is, but disclaimer if you want, is that you copy it off ChatGPT, put it onto a Word document or a Google Doc or something like that, and then just go through it and rewrite it to sound like you. That's the key. You know, it's going to give you a great output, but it's your voice that makes it valuable.
Yes, I was
just paste it straight in.
I was running a workshop the other day in secondary schools, and we were talking about ChatGPT, and that's what, you know, you still need to be able to add your voice to it. Absolutely. And it still needs, it can't do everything that we need it to do, but I was saying it's an excellent tool for the framework that we need to kind of get started. And I don't want to get us off track on ChatGPT. We could have a whole conversation, but it could be a value. It's a useful tool for dyslexics to be using.
Oh, hugely. It's, you know, somebody the other day called it a game changer. And for dyslexics and people with ADHD and dysgraphia and dyscalculia autism and those sort of things. Yes, it can be, but it's the way you use it that that defines whether it's going to be a game changer for you or not. So yeah, use the tools that, I mean, there are so many tools available. I use Grammarly very heavily. So I don't know if you guys use it, but Grammarly is one of the best things since sliced bread, believe me. You know, it helps me with everything. And every week they send me an email saying, this week you've improved in your spelling. This week you've improved your grammar by X percentage. And every week I'm like, oh yeah, that's so cool. You know, I'm getting better at spelling, I'm getting better at grammar, I'm getting better at writing. And that's fantastic. So use the tools that are available to enhance what you're doing with your about section. And then I would say the fifth thing that you need to do if you want to have a profile that represents you well as a CV is to have your employment section, or your experience section, I think they now call it, is as complete as possible. And again, in each of those sections, you have, so in your about section on your LinkedIn profile, you've got up to 2,000 characters that you can write about you. You can tell that story. But then within each of those experience sections, in each of those jobs, you've got a further 2,000 characters that you can utilize to further that story. So you can take your story in your about section and you can now drill down and you can make it relevant to each of those positions. And again, yeah, you can go into a little bit more detail about how you benefited the company that you worked for. So it gives it's an opportunity to create a rich experience about who you are, what you've done, and what value you bring to the table for the company that you're looking to work with. It's also an opportunity for employers to see your growth path. So again, if you go to my profile, and I just use my profile as an example, because then nobody can get offended. It's only me, it's my profile. I'm the only one that's going to get offended. But if you go to my profile, my job history goes all the way back to 1980 when I had my first job in the South African Air Force. And the reason for that is it shows a progression. So I've done this, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. And now I can say, taking all that experience, I can deliver X, Y, Z. And so that's the fifth thing I would say. If you're looking for a job, make that experience section as relevant and as rich as possible. And so those are the 5 things I would say would be really, really good to do. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
And would you have an introductory blurb around the key criteria of the role, and then like some dot points around the major tasks and responsibilities? Like, is there a certain format you think works well for LinkedIn when describing, or would it all just be a paragraph on that role that you wanted to talk? Is there a certain way of presenting it?
Yeah, I think when you craft your about section, you can change that to suit each job role that you're potentially trying to apply for. But I wouldn't go into too great a detail, because if you apply for a job, sorry, say again. Sorry, so in
the experience section, would you put a lot of detail in there about each role that you've undertaken?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you can there put in the bullet points, and you can drill down into each of those job roles. So for example, I saw one the other day where in the about section, the person had written a story of their career and how they got to where they are, and some of the things that they brought to the table. But then in the experience section, they went into detail about on the one job, I think it was, they'd increased the company's turnover by 30% in 3 years. That increased sales profitability by X%. So those sort of things you can put into that experience section, And then highlight that. So when you send it to the recruiter, just highlight to them, I've put all the detail in the experience section so that people can read down and see all of that in a way that makes it richer and more alive.
And so then, I mean, because at the moment I have mine as a mix of Shay is blah, blah, blah. And then I guess in my experience, it's I've done all this. So should we be talking in the first person normally?
Always in the first person. Talking in the third person makes you feel distant.
Mm-hmm.
And LinkedIn is an environment in which you want to engage with people in the first person. So you're creating posts that are first person. So write your profile in the first person. This is what I've done, you know,
And
otherwise it sounds too much like a PR exercise.
yeah, okay. And what are your thoughts around, this is a question from our audience, around putting that we are dyslexic. So it's only recently, and I don't think it's overt, but I think if you went through my LinkedIn profile, you pretty much know that I'm dyslexic. But I don't have on there specifically, I don't think I do anywhere that I am dyslexic. I think it's only recently that I put in that little about.
Yep.
No. I've said I'm an expert in adulthood dyslexia, but I actually haven't. And I've said I'm a published dyslexic researcher. So that's the only section that I've got that I am dyslexic. And that's only recent. So do you think there's still too much prejudice out there? I know in the UK, there's a big movement around dyslexic thinking and the dyslexic superpower, and Australia's not in that space yet. Do you think it's detrimental to put it on there?
I think, firstly, you've got to be aware of cultural norms. And secondly, for me, I want to challenge cultural norms. I want to challenge those things that make me feel. So I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was 46, okay, which is late in life. Up until then, I'd spent my whole life in fear of people finding out that I was dyslexic. So for me, it's now become a thing. Yeah, I'm putting it on there because I want to challenge people's perspectives of who I am. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a client. I did a session for a client, and we were talking about dyslexia and ADHD, and that was the specific thing. And it's becoming more acceptable for people to go, okay, you're dyslexic, you're not stupid. And so this is what I'm trying to say. For me, I want to encourage people to put it on their profile. I am dyslexic. So at the bottom of my emails, if you get an email from me, you'll see right at the bottom of my email, it says, expect, so I'm powered or empowered by dyslexia, expect small spelling mistakes and big ideas. You know, I am who I am. I can't change the fact that I'm dyslexic. I can change some of the ways I respond to it, but I'm dyslexic. If I go into a job, I know I'm going to make spelling mistakes. It's better that people know up front that I'm dyslexic and therefore I'll make mistakes. Then they go, oh, you must be stupid. You can't spell there. I mean, I know 13 ways you can spell there, and I still don't know which there is there. You know, it's like, yeah. So for me, I want to encourage people to put it on their profile. But I think it's a personal choice. I think it's a personal thing regarding how you feel about yourself and about this condition that you have, which you can do nothing about. Since I've put it on my profile that I am dyslexic, I mean, I've told people for years, but since I put it on my profile, the conversations I've had with people has completely changed. And I had this very similar question asked a couple of weeks ago. I was with a client up in London, a big financial services company, and somebody said to me, yeah, but you know, is it something you want to put on your profile? Being in the financial services industry, people are going to, you know, disassociate themselves from you because of that issue. Well, that's their problem, not mine. There's a statistic that's around. I'm still trying to investigate how true it is. There's a statistic that says 32% of all chartered accountants are ADHD. So why wouldn't you put it on your profile? So I think it's a personal choice, but for me, as an advocate for people who are dyslexic and ADHD, put it on your profile. That's my easiest way of saying it.
Well, I think I need to update my profile so it's a bit more explicit. And actually, I don't even have it on my email signature. And as you were talking, I was like, yeah, I really need to. I think I just make an assumption people know I'm dyslexic because of everything I do, but you should never assume, should you? So that, and
I sometimes think that, most of us have experienced rejection as dyslexics because you were at school, you couldn't spell well, you're stupid. You couldn't write well, you're stupid. So it's that kind of rejection that's been out there for so long that I sometimes think we don't want people to see that we are or know that we are overtly because they may just reject us. And I think that's sometimes the problem with it.
Yeah, and I mean, the research I've done within the Australian context is the people I interviewed at one point in their career, well, the majority of their careers, they hadn't disclosed they were dyslexic. So I think to put it out there on LinkedIn would be a huge step for a lot of people at the moment because of the fear of discrimination and the impact that it could have on their careers. But I think the more of us who have the ability to do it, because we're in situations where it's okay to, I think it helps with the movement that we're trying to create around raising awareness.
I think, for me, Shay, it's around three things. And the first of those is education. The more we educate other people about dyslexia and ADHD, and of course, I'm talking about all the other neurodiverse conditions, the more we educate people about these things, the more the understanding of them will grow. Now, here in the UK, there is an anti-discrimination legislation that you can't prevent somebody from applying for, number one, and secondly, from getting a job just because they're dyslexic or ADHD or disabled in any other way. So the legislation's in place. But a lot of people don't think about that legislation when they apply for a job, when they put it on their profile, because they think that discrimination is still going to be there. And yes, it is. But if you understand how to utilize it properly, it can work in your favor.
And it's the same here under the Discrimination Act of 1992. For those who don't know, dyslexia became part of sat under that and still sits under that as a disability that we can't be discriminated against. And it's now under the Human Rights Act and the Fair Work Act in Australia. And I think employers lack that understanding that they're actually, they are discriminating if they are not putting the reasonable adjustments in to support a dyslexic throughout the employment journey, whether it's from recruitment through to career progression. So there's quite a lot of work still to be done in that space. But I know that we've hit nearly half an hour, and I think we'll have to do another one for sure.
Happy days.
Around how we can continue to use LinkedIn to our advantage. But are there any key points, and if there's anyone listening that would like to verbalize a question or join the conversation?
So I did see the question there from Dave.
Sorry, Dave. To say thank you very much. I can totally agree, and love ChatGPT as well. I use it a lot, and I see it as more. I see ChatGPT empowering dyslexic people as well. I noticed that we're not fearful of it, but everybody else seems to be, because they know they're starting to experience what we've experienced, whereby it's harder to get jobs, it's harder to do things, and things like that. And when these sort of technologies on the horizon, they're scared. Whereas we're like, how do we embrace it? So I find that really interesting what we were talking about earlier. So
brilliant, thanks, Dave. I'm actually going to be doing a a webinar around how dyslexics and people with ADHD can use ChatGPT and the type of prompts that you can do and create that really enhance your experience. So maybe it's something I'll drop in with Shay and let you know about it.
Yeah,
Well,
that would be great.
I started using it in my little business that I want to start up because I program little mice things.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll go into it another time. I can talk about it for hours. Sorry.
No worries.
All right. Well, I mean, maybe the next conversation is how, as business owners, we can be using LinkedIn. I think particularly, Vic, if you've got some pointers on, how we set up our business page and versus that personal page that we're using to then kind of re-promote, which I think is why my page is so confused, because part of it is Shay does this because I'm part of a business, but then I've got my own personal stuff. Yeah, so it can be a bit confusing. So maybe it would be great if we could do one on business owners, seeing, the stats tell us 40% of dyslexics are entrepreneurs or working in the self-employed space. So we could have a follow-up conversation with you if you would kindly spare some more of your time.
Shay, I'm more than happy to set it up, or for you to set it up. Give me some dates. I'm more than happy to do that. Also, to let you know that on Monday next week, I'll be launching an online course called 5 Peaks, which is a LinkedIn course specifically aimed at dyslexic and ADHD people of how you can use LinkedIn, what's the best thing to do. And that will be going live online next week. But I'm more than happy to have that conversation with you. So if you want to set it up, let's do it.
Fantastic. And if you send me those details, then we can put it through our Facebook community as well, and through LinkedIn, and share it all, because we're all working for the same purpose, and that's to improve outcomes for our fellow dyslexic communities. So thank you so much. I'm now going to jump from this meeting to our PhD, dyslexic PhD support group that we have on a monthly basis. So I'm proud to say I'm nearly finished my PhD, not long now. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thanks, Dave, for dropping by. And to all of those that joined us this evening, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. And we look forward to speaking to you all again soon. So for tonight, have a great evening, have a great day, Vic, and talk to you all again soon. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks, Dave. Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.